How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to the Peegs Postgame Live. Obviously, a little bit of a delayed Peegs Postgame Live. Game ended more than 12 hours ago, but there's a reason for that and why we went about it that way. With a normal home game, it plays out like this. You got the final buzzer, you go inside, you do the press conferences. You have to wait a little while for the press conferences to come online. And for the coaches to come in, the players to come in, and then you have to put up the video on Peegs.com. Then I go out, I set up my equipment, and I go live. It takes normally about 45 minutes after final buzzer. I actually like doing these shows after road games because I go live right away. You have yesterday's situation, 8 seniors, Mike Woodson to speak, press conference, wait for coaches to come in. It always takes a little bit longer on senior day. You have press conferences, and then you have get things set up and go. By that time, it would have been hours after the game. It still is now. But what this really allows me to do is, kind of take in things a little bit more than doing it in the moment, and allowed everybody to have their Saturday evening. Honestly, that's part of it. So Sunday, I know some people it's going to church time, but wanted to still be able to talk to you folks about the game, the season, the impact, some of the things that went on Saturday at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. So 812-393-2600 is the number. And let's start with let's start at the end. Indiana obviously wins 66-60 over Ohio State. Pretty much, in my eyes, locks them in to the NCAA tournament. Then you had an unusual senior day, one that is different than it has been in decades. And that was, instead of each individual senior giving a speech, Mike Woodson talking to the crowd, instead what you had was a video. Anthony Leal talk on behalf of all the seniors, and that was it. Still a nice ceremony, make no mistake, but still a departure from what Indiana has done over the years. You had, even in Kelvin Sampson's year, when he gets fired, Dan Dockich ran senior day and did it the way that it had been done for decades. Senior night was always a big deal for IU basketball, because especially when I was younger, before you had the kind of coverage that you do now, a lot of times you didn't hear guys' voices until senior day. You didn't know what they sounded like in the days before internet and before all of that. Not everybody is comfortable giving a speech on senior day, and that has been abundantly clear over the years. But this departure was surprising to me. People stick around to see those senior speeches. They want to hear from people. But it was a difference this time around, too, because of the fact that, you have 8 seniors, but you had a pile of walk-ons. Umar Ballo and Luke Goody are one-year rentals, and, possibly Goody being back a second year. He's probably going to try to find a way to get a medical red shirt, which is absolutely his right. But Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway gave senior night speeches last year, in which they announced they'd be back. So there's that. Then you had this video of Mike Woodson, and it's just such an odd situation because of the fact that Woodson, we know, is not going to be back next year. It's very abundantly clear that it's a resignation, but it ain't Mike Woodson's idea. And so where we are with this is that Woodson was just part of the video. And he absolutely was draped in Bob Knight in his portion of the video, which you could see it on Peegs.com and pretty much everywhere. But the start of the thing was all about Mike Woodson and just was bathed in Bob Knight. It is an interesting decision to go that direction, but it's also interesting because what you have is a guy who played here, and so many of the highlights were of him as a player, and that's great. That is his a huge part of his legacy. It's the only reason he was ever relatively considered to be the head coach, let alone hired, is that he played here. And over the past 4 years, results have not met the standards that are expected, period. That's how it is. Given the resources and talent on the roster, Indiana has not come close to reaching a standard of where they should be. And yet it was, kind of a thank you for being able to do what we did and do what you did, and kind of a quiet send-off. Leo came out and he talked to the fans, got choked up a little bit thinking about Mike Woodson. Woody was had some wet eyes in the video and all that. Absolutely genuine. I don't doubt that for a second. All of that, but it was just a very different senior day along the way. And what I thought was interesting is on Twitter yesterday, the John Rothstein, I think it is, John Rothstein on Twitter after that game, he says, and this is a quote from John Rothstein, who is a national reporter for CBS Sports, a partner of 24/7. But still, it says Mike Woodson is on the verge of leading Indiana to 3 NCAA tournament appearances in 4 years, and the Hoosiers won a game in March Madness twice during that span. Interesting place. Remember, only 4 trips to the Sweet 16 since 1994. I tweeted back, safe to say you don't have an idea what's been going on out here. Squeaking into the tourney with talent and resources here is the definition of mediocrity. And I don't want to just take shots at Rothstein himself. It's part of a larger issue that a lot of times when you're dealing with national reporters, they're dealing with the coaches. Those are their sources, are the coaches. And so you're getting that viewpoint. They're covering so many teams. The coaches are who they talk to. You could talk to some people, but some other people than just the coaches. But they're talking to the coaches. And so they get the coach side of things. And so this concept that somehow, and it's been bouncing around just a little bit, that Indiana has been hasty with Mike Woodson on forcing him out, is kind of a narrative that some people have. And it's silly. Because as I was watching down the stretch of that game last night, it was a matter of, here is a bad Ohio State team. A very, very mediocre to bad Ohio State team that was taking on what has been a very mediocre to bad Indiana basketball team. And they were going toe-to-toe. Look, Indiana finishes the Big Ten season at 10-10. Ohio State is 9-11. Indiana 19-12. Ohio State 17-14. This is not a good Ohio State team. One of them had to win. One of them has a $5 million roster. And the $5 million roster team with all the talent was really, really struggling with the less talented team. And did the first time around, too, at their place. Let's not forget, Indiana won by 1 in overtime after choking on a 10-point lead with 5 minutes to go. And so, sort of what I'm interested in, what the atmosphere at Assembly Hall yesterday was fantastic. Fans were cheering. Fans were really, really into it. They wanted Indiana to win, and understandably so. The interesting part to me, though, is what would that atmosphere have been like if an announcement hadn't been made and Indiana was struggling against Ohio State? At this point, those fans could get behind the Hoosiers without worrying that a year from now we'd be in the same exact situation because of the knowns of Mike Woodson. Meanwhile, there is also a world in which, without a decision having already been made, Mike Woodson would have continued to do what he had been doing prior to that resignation and playing a two big lineup, staying stubborn with the way that he was going about things, because of things outside of seeing the results on the floor, whether it be promises made to players or, talk about playing time, whatever it is, and worrying about protecting the integrity of those promises for players who would come after. Mike Woodson didn't change lineups or change the way Indiana played until after he announced he was leaving, or after it was announced he was leaving. He still hasn't said a damn thing about it, really. He was asked a little bit about it yesterday, and you'll hear it in just a few minutes. I'll let you listen to Mike Woodson and what he had to say. But it is a fascinating thing because Indiana's going to squeak into the NCAA tournament. And with the resources Indiana has, the talent it has, in no world should Indiana be squeaking into the NCAA tournament. And so don't paint this up as Indiana's being hasty because the Hoosiers are going to the NCAA tournament for the third time in 4 years. I mean, that seems ridiculous. This isn't a hasty thing. This is about setting a standard and not coming close to the standard despite having more resources than any head coach in Indiana basketball history and more resources than almost any other coach in the country. Don't act like he's getting a raw deal here. Don't act like Indiana fans are crazy for this, that Indiana fans are delusional. Nobody is saying, hey, you know what? It's a national championship. You should be hanging banners, man. Why aren't you getting to the third weekend of the tournament? It is don't get boat raced by 25 points in back-to-back games. Don't get your ass kicked by Illinois at home. And it's great that you were able to squeak by Penn State and Ohio State along the way. That's great. But don't act like, well, everything here is fine. Indiana fans are being crazy. Mike Woodson's getting a raw deal. He's not. Indiana did exactly what they needed to do. Probably waited a year too long to do it, be honest with you. That's part of that equation. So the national guys that are out there and talking to people in the program, which are assistant coaches and coaches that they've built relationship with over the years, they're getting that view of it. But ain't nobody calling the people who cover the team. They ain't talking to the people who know what goes on behind the scenes and saying Mike Woodson's getting a raw deal. So there's that. 812-393-2600 is the number. I want to hear from you guys about senior day, the game yesterday, Mike Woodson, all of it that goes into it. Again, a little bit different show because it starts at 11:15 the day after the night of the game. But it was, in my opinion, the right thing to do. And we won't be doing this every game, obviously, going forward, whether it's football or basketball. But it was something that I did want to do this time because it was what I felt was best for everybody on their evening. We'll get to a little bit of the game, not a little bit, a lot of bit into the game. Indiana's 66-60 win over Ohio State, which they managed to close out the game nicely. Ohio State missed its last 6 shots, went one of its last 11 from the floor. Again, it was also not a good basketball team that Indiana played. And the Buckeyes had multiple opportunities to win this thing and just would not take those opportunities. Indiana actually shot worse than Ohio State from the floor, 35%. but got 31 free throws, twice as many free throws. Weird that I didn't hear Mike Woodson bitch about the officiating in this one, where he got doubled up on the number of free throws. Weird that, but that's a normal thing. He complained when it was 21-7 at Oregon. It's 31-15 at home, and not a peep, which isn't unusual. But that's life in the Big Ten, and that's just how it is. 812-393-2600 is the number. I'm going to go ahead and play Mike Woodson's post-game press conference at this point. You might hear something a little bit different because of the fact that he brought his granddaughter in with him, which is perfectly fine, by the way. I got no issue with that at all, of him doing that. She got a little fussy. Or the kid got a little bit fussy, so he handed the baby off a little bit, a couple minutes into this. So if at the start he sounds a little bit distracted, that's why he was holding a child. So without any further ado, here is head coach Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference following yesterday's win.
There you go. All right, let's go.
Mike, it's your last home game, obviously, this season. It's a loaded question, forgive me. How do you – I think the way people remember you as a player certainly is pretty much set in stone now. How do you want them to remember what you've done for this program over the last 4 years?
Well, the one thing I look at it is, we've been in the tournament a few years. We've been able to recruit players. Been able to graduate players. I just want the program to be successful. That's all. That's all I ever thought about when I took the job, and that's how I feel now, so. Grab it here. Miz and then Todd. Okay, go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, Mike, knowing this, obviously last game at Assembly Hall, what were your emotions like today? Did you try to put that out of your head? And if you'd be willing, you haven't talked about it a ton, but what went into your decision to step down in the first place?
Say that again?
Yeah. What emotions today, did you try to put it out of your mind kind of throughout the day, or what were they like? And then if you'd be willing, you haven't talked about it much, what went into your decision to step down earlier this season?
Well, we're just focusing on the game. It's a very emotional game. I think back to 1980, playing this same team for the Big Ten title. That's the only thing that was going through my head throughout the day, and wanted it so much for these seniors to win, because I knew how special that night was for me, my senior year, and walking off that floor as a Big Ten champion. We still have an opportunity to win the Big Ten tournament, just like the other 14 teams that'll be in it. So that's all I'm thinking about at this point. There's nothing else.
Mike, you mentioned what an emotional victory this was. Two-part question. First, what do you think got the offense going in the last 5 minutes? And secondly, how does it feel to you that Trey Galloway, who's been here with you for the whole ride, was such a large part of it?
I couldn't be more proud because he's caught so much hell, and it was only fitting that he hit the biggest shot of the game tonight, to really seal it and give us the cushion that we needed to win. So I couldn't be more proud of Trey Galloway and his career he's had here on this basketball floor. As a group, we haven't experienced very many losses in this building. We've won a lot of games in this building, and Trey's been a big part of that because he's been with me from day one. Anthony's been a part of it from day one. So I'm proud of all of our players, but I'm proud of those two guys especially because they've been with me the longest.
Yeah, Mike, I was actually going to ask you about that Galloway three at the end. First, it seemed like there was some confusion with the shot clock maybe. I guess what was going on there. But just, what's it like to see Trey have a moment like that on senior day?
I think we got caught, not really knowing the rule. It was a loose ball. They went out on our end. So all you get is 20 seconds on the clock. So we were screaming that the clock was wrong, but Trey kept, focused, and once the pick and roll broke down and the guy kind of went up under the screen, he stepped up and made a big shot, which was kind of nice.
Yeah, Mike, how do you want Trey to be remembered here?
The only thing you can remember Trey is that he plays hard, he competes, and you be fooling yourself if you think anything else. That's all I ever known him as. I named him Crazy Man when I first started coaching him because, he was all over the place. Didn't know what you were going to get from him, but he competed. And that's all he's ever done, and for the fans to sit in here and boo him during the time that they booed him, it just wasn't right. It just wasn't, because that kid competes, he gives his heart, and have nothing but respect and love for Trace Galloway.
Coach, speaking of competing, on a day when shots weren't falling for most of the day, you had Goody and Leo both had career highs in rebounds with 8 apiece. What does that speak to in terms of effort?
Seniors that didn't want to lose, and I rode them. I've been riding them, and I wasn't going to take them out at the end. If you lose, you want to lose with your seniors on the floor, and I wasn't thinking that way. I think once Malik hit the 2 free throws to give us the 2-point lead, we never looked back from that point on. Our defense really got stiff, and we made play after play, and we made some good offensive plays, made our free throws, a few of them, and enough to give us the cushion to win the game.
Coach, your staff has been with you all 4 years, but specifically today, Yasir Roseman on the floor, screaming, calling out plays. What has he meant to you this season and all 4 years?
All my coaches have been special. When I took this job, after spending 34 years of my life in the NBA, it was a different move for me. And the fact that I had some college guys that had done it a while, and they always reminded me of that, called me a rookie coach when I first started, and which I was like, hell, shit, I coached a lot longer than a lot of you guys. But at the end of the day, they've helped me recruit. They've helped me coach on the floor. They've helped me put film sessions together, practice sessions together. It's been, there's a lot that goes into coaching, a lot that you guys will never, ever know because you don't sit in the day-to-day grind that we sit in. But it's a part of what we do. But they've been very special to me, a big part of what we've done over the last 4 years.
Coach, back here. On the CBS broadcast, you said your first thoughts were, maybe I'm leaving too soon.
Well, there's always going to be that thought. But at the end of the day, it's not about me right now. It's still about this team and us going up to Indianapolis and trying to win the Big Ten tournament.
So there's Mike Woodson from his post-game press conference. Interesting comments, to say the least. Because, again, look, it's a win. And Indiana's going to go to the NCAA tournament. It is this dance that we've been doing along the way has been interesting because when that resignation was announced, said he would address it at the appropriate time. What happened yesterday in the press conference wasn't addressing anything. He, is that video what he believes is addressing things? I don't know. We'll see. Clearly, the focus is on the season as it goes on. And what we saw yesterday was a team that was fighting, that was battling along the way. Ohio State at one time had a 10-point lead with 12 minutes to go in the second half. And the Hoosiers ended up turning that into a 6-point victory. So that's 16-point swing. That's excellent. And that's what you want to see. It's just a matter of, again, this is an Ohio State team that Indiana competed against a peer team. Because that is what they've done this year. It's a peer team. One finished the season 10-10. The other one finished 9-11. So that's good. That's great that they battled against that. And Indiana's had some nice wins. Michigan State on the road, beating Purdue. That's all really great. But it's a matter of 4 years ago when Mike Woodson was hired, was Ohio State going to what you looked at as the peer team in year 4 with the resources that are there? That's what I just keep coming back to. But let's talk about that's Ohio State game. Indiana wins 66-60. Some of the individual stats on this. Trey Galloway, 16 points on 6 of 15 shooting. He had 6 assists and 2 turnovers in 34 minutes. Mackenzie Mbako, actually, along with Malik Renew, led the Hoosiers at a plus-minus of 13. But Mackenzie, 7 points on 1 of 4 shooting. 5 of 8 from the free throw line, had 5 rebounds in 31 minutes. Mbako made an impact on the game without shooting, and that was really important. Really, really important. Luke Goody, 11 points, just 1 of 7 shooting from the floor overall, 1 of 6 from three-point line, but 8 of 10 from the free throw line, added 8 rebounds to go with a block and a steal. Anthony Leal, 4 points on 1 of 2 shooting, 8 rebounds, 1 assist. He had 2 blocks and a steal in 35 minutes, played a ton. Let's talk about Anthony Leal, okay? Anthony Leal might be one of those main examples of what you're looking at when it comes to Woodson and how things have changed since he finished up since that announcement came. You look at Anthony Leal, and along the way, he didn't play much early in the season. I know he was a bit banged up for that, but Indiana plays USC, and Leal plays 5 minutes. At Iowa, they get boat raced. He plays 21 minutes, 16 minutes against Illinois when Indiana got hammered at there, or at Assembly Hall. At that point, Indiana plays at Ohio State. Leal plays 31 minutes. At Northwestern, Leal plays 28 minutes. This is when he started getting his time. This is where, and if you look, he plays at Purdue, he plays 35 minutes on January 31st. At Wisconsin, he plays just 11 minutes. The announcement comes before the Michigan game. Since then, Leal has played 33 minutes, 30 minutes, 20, 35, 30, 34, 23, 35. All of a sudden, Leal's in the lineup, and he's staying there, for 3/4 of the game as well. Why is this important? Because those numbers, which you would occasionally, he'd pop in there, but really jumped with consistency after that announcement. Which means, prior to this announcement, Leal was a part of things, but he certainly wasn't a starter and went into things. And so what took so long for that to happen? Leal helps Indiana win games. I don't always like the way he plays. He flops. He does a lot of little dirty things. He drew a foul yesterday on a screen where he wrapped his left hand around an Ohio State's player's hip and then fell backwards and pulled him down. It's a dirty little thing. It's not my style. I don't like it, but it was effective. And it got, I believe, Goody to the free throw line. So, it's those little things that help a team win. But where the hell was that over the past few years? And it's not Leal isn't the guy that I'm looking at there. It's the coaching staff. You ride with the guys who are going to help you win, and you don't sit there and play Kanan Carlisle a bunch of minutes. or Miles Rice a bunch of minutes if they're not going to help you win. Or you told them, come play here, and here's a ton of money, and here's here's the kind of minutes you're going to get. And then once that future promises or that integrity of future promises falls away, you could put Leal in the lineup and start playing a hell of a lot better. And it didn't happen on its own. If there was no announcement and Mike Woodson decided, I need to change things up, it would be a different story. But it was once that announcement made, then he changed everything. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Omar Ballo, 9 points on 4 of 9 shooting, had 7 rebounds and an assist in 24 minutes. I thought Indiana did a good job of swapping Ballo and Renew out. They were on the floor a little bit with each other, but not a ton. Off the bench, you had Malik Renew come off the bench, 16 points on 5 of 10 shooting. He made all 6 of his free throws, 5 rebounds. He had an assist, a block, a steal, played 22 minutes. Miles Rice, 3 points on 1 of 5 shooting, just 1 of 4 from 3-point range. Had a rebound, 4 fouls, 20 minutes. He was +1. Ballo, by the way, was -6, which I think is interesting. Kanan Carlisle did not score, played just 4 minutes, took 2 shots in that time. All 4 of those minutes came in the first half. Galloway obviously hit the big 3, where there was a little bit of confusion, and he was able to drain a long 3, which, again, for a senior, that you heard everybody was kind of talking about that. Still clearing up a little bit of the remnants of the illness that got me last week. But it was a nice performance from him. Even there were some mistakes. He still does some things that it's just, at this point, you would hope that would be cleaned up, but they aren't. We had a caller, and they were there for 13 seconds and hung up. Sure hope they call back. That would be really great. 812-393-2600 is the number. Indiana shoots 35.2% overall, just 25% from 3-point range, but they did make 23 of 31 free throws. The Hoosiers out-rebounded Ohio State 40-31. That lack of rebounding from Ohio State was a big part of this, because the Hoosiers were able to score 18 second-chance points. And that's what really gave Indiana that advantage that they had. But they struggled along the way. Again, Ohio State outshot them overall, but in the second half, Indiana was better defensively. And again, this is an IU team that found a way to win when it needed it most. Although in the first half, they were pretty flat. But they did turn it on in the second half. It has been a second-half team. And there are so many opportunities along the way that where the season and the narrative and everything that goes into this year could have been a lot different when it comes to some of the late-game struggles. Maryland, Purdue, Michigan. You could run it over and over and over again. UCLA. You could say that Indiana wasn't that far away, but you could also point to very clear reasons why Indiana wasn't able to close out games along the way. And the other thing is there is the overall record and getting to the NCAA tournament. And then there is the idea of just being competitive in the Big Ten. And in Woodson's 4 years as head coach at IU, Indiana in the league is 9-11, 12-8, 10-10, 10-10. Just a tick over 500. Hiring a coach and having the resources Indiana does, and going through season after season of being just 500 in the Big Ten, it isn't crazy to move on. Again, that's a NCAA tournament bids aren't the only factor here. You just say Indiana's going 3 times in 4 years and they're moving up. That's not That's not the only metric that we're using. For Indiana, that should be the bare minimum of reaching the NCAA tournament with the support and everything that goes into it. 812-393-2600 is the number. Indiana managed to score that win, and now their next game is going to be against Oregon Thursday at noon in Indianapolis. They're going to have that opportunity. But before we talk anymore, I'm going to bring on a caller. Caller, have your name, where you're from, and what you got. Caller, can you hear me? Nope, we lost him. Well, that's a concern. That's a concern. I don't know where my that's 2 callers now that we've just lost. Because I'm all for hearing from people. 812-393-2600 is the number. Again, it's a the controversy that goes into, not controversy, that's too strong. The controversy of the discussion about senior night, you could give a nod and understand how you have a pile of guys, a bunch of walk-ons who, God bless them, but nobody knows who they are. You have Luke Goody and Omar Ballo, who've been only here for a year. And so there's not necessarily that connection that you might have with a lot of guys. Previous, college basketball's changed. The world has changed. It used to be a guy like Trey Galloway. He committed early, and people could go watch him play in high school and have seen him develop over the years. Same thing with Anthony Leal. You've seen that over the years. That is now more of a unusual thing, and I think it'll continue to be an unusual thing. Guys that are there year over year over year. Definitely going to be the case next year. There's going to be a lot of new faces next year, folks. So the question becomes then, does the senior speeches, does everything that goes into that, is that something that falls by the wayside? Is that another tradition that's going to go away? Indiana is one of the few schools I know that allow that have a speech. Most schools do something before a game and not after. And Indiana's kind of always been an outlier with that, and that goes back to the Knight years. It also created a bunch of fun moments over the years, whether it's Knight's poem that he's done, and let's hear from Bob Knight right now.
When my time on earth is gone and my activities here are past, I want they bury me upside down and my critics can kiss my ass.
Everybody loves that poem. Everybody was Gritty on the chat says, I thought the tribute to Mike Woodson was tasteful and well done. No argument here. I thought it was well done. It was a very nice video. And it was nice and nicely done. Like I said, he was draped in Bob Knight in that thing. And I might have closed the video with that and put the focus on the players a little bit more, but it was that's an editing decision. That's all that is. So that's how that goes. But you think other moments on senior nights was Colin Hartman proposing to his girlfriend, which that relationship didn't end up working out, but it was a fun moment that you had right there. One of the top senior night moments was Mike White's speech to his senior night when he forgot Brett Finkelmeyer's name, a teammate, forgot his name. That was awesome. You have just some fun stuff, and then you have some things that aren't great, which might have been one of the reasons why Mike Woodson wasn't handed a microphone when he talked about true fans last year, and he insulted half the fan base. So that may be part of that equation too. But it's okay. It is it's something to look at. Indiana has started to move things just a little bit when it comes to traditions, such as having the black uniforms and things like that. Don't want to make a caller wait. Caller, if I can have your name, where you're from, and what you got.
This is Greg from Texas.
Hey.
I just wanted to. Hello?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh yeah, I thought it was a really good decision to go ahead and do the video tribute and take the microphone out of both Woodson's hands and the players' hands, given what happened last year. And the other thing I wanted to raise with you, and maybe I missed a little bit of the show, so maybe you've already talked about it, but what do you make of Mike Woodson's comments to the national announcer about he's maybe leaving too soon?
Well, he doesn't.
I'll hang up and listen.
Well, he doesn't want to leave. I mean, he doesn't want this to be happening. He thinks that he's done a good job and shouldn't be walking away. I know that this is being couched as his decision, and that hasn't been. There's been repeatedly he's talked to TV people and made comments. Kind of in that same vein. The way he looks at it is they're going to the NCAA tournament 3 times in 4 years, and he's averaging. He says that he's averaged 21 wins a year. He thinks he's done a good job, and my argument is, well, you've also blown a lot of games over the years. You've lost a whole ton of them by double digits, 20-plus point losses, and you haven't lived up to your own standards that you had of just competing for a Big Ten title. You haven't gotten within sniffing distance of one of those. So that's kind of why he's saying what he is. So that's where it is. I appreciate the call. It's good to hear from Texas. I don't know if I've heard from Texas yet. Another cough. This will be cleared up in the next couple of days. It has to. It has to. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to be like in a period piece and coughing blood into a handkerchief like I got tuberculosis. But I don't. I went to the doctor the other day, so it's fine. In terms of Indiana and what they're going to do, a big part of Indiana going to the NCAA tournament is also going to be what happens in other places around the country, your bid stealers along the way. And also, you want to win in the Big Ten tournament. That's the other thing with this. Big Ten tournament's been going on now for, a long time, nearly 30 years. And, Indiana has not been a factor in the Big Ten tournament most years. They've gone to the title game a couple times, never won it. And for this program, that's how long it's been since you've just had any kind of consistency here. And so limping along, squeaking into the NCAA tournament, because I also want to make the point about when it comes to Indiana, I'm pulling up the exact the exact run of things here. You go to the NCAA tournament 3 times in 4 years. One of them, you went to the first 4. Another one, you did get to the second round, but every one of those losses, you get hammered. And so squeaking into the NCAA tournament is nice, but damn, man, you got to progress. And that's kind of where we are. We're into tournament week, and there's still the question of what is going to happen with this season by this time in a program that is going the right direction. because it's never, ever about today. It's never about today. It is about the direction that you're going. Is Indiana basketball in a better place today than it was a year ago? It isn't. So I keep coming back to this argument that, wow, maybe Indiana jumped the gun. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And again, with more resources than most programs in the country. So I keep coming back to that it is, changes are coming. It's going to be better. This frustration that, people, accuse me of having a vendetta or anything. No, I just want to see good basketball. I just want to see good basketball, and that is not always necessarily what we've seen along the way. 812-393-2600. Lines are open. And again, now the focus turns to Oregon, which Indiana lost to on last Tuesday. They lost. And so what are you going to learn about that loss that you had that was a 9-point loss on the road? Omar Ballo was big in that, 10 points, 12 rebounds. Indiana showed nice balance. Galloway had, I'm burping, 16 points. That is where Indiana's strength came from. Miles Rice played 26 minutes in that game. And it is the quickness of Oregon that is really part of the equation there. Oregon sits at 22-8. Are they 22-8? Are they still 22-8? Yeah, they're 22-8 in the Big and 11-8 in the Big Ten. Only finishing a spot above Indiana. Only have 3 more wins than Indiana. And yet, it is still, Oregon's in a better place than Indiana. And so that challenge, it'll be ostensibly a home game for Indiana. It always is when you play in Indianapolis, which makes sense. But the Hoosiers have to come to play. They have to play with the sense of urgency, and that was really missing in the first half yesterday. And you want to make sure that is part of the equation, that you're there and you're ready to play. 812-393-2600 is the number. Appreciate the call from Texas. I just finishing this season strong was certainly a positive for Indiana. They beat some teams that they should have along the way. Those losses in January just kept stacking up, and it was when teams were the tougher teams. Indiana basically didn't take care of business, save for the Michigan State game, the second half against Purdue. Even that Purdue game, it was a win, and so it's not how, it's how many. But the difference between the first and second half, we still haven't seen that same level of effort from the Hoosiers in any of the games that they've had since that second half of the Purdue game. And so I expected to see that level of effort, and then didn't along the way. 812-393-2600 is the number. And so that is where we're at, as I have to join in. Our special guest is going to be coming down here, and got a chance to cover the game senior night with Charlie the intern, which is always fun. Someone on Twitter says, thoughts on Woodson not staying out and supporting his team during the video speeches seem like a real crappy to do. In my opinion, it shows his lack of leadership and character. I honestly didn't notice that along the way, that that he had gone inside. I know that he was sticking around, and look, Mike Woodson's going to be emotional. He's going to have that that feeling. So to me, if he is if he didn't stick around, I could understand that completely along the way. But Woodson was it's just such an odd situation. That's the thing. On the chat, Pecan says, Ken, other than Luke Goody, if he's successful appealing, who else would you like to see return? There's a difference in who I would like to see return and who actually might return. I think there's going to be a huge, huge turnover for this roster during the offseason. Obviously, Leal is gone. Obviously, Ballo is gone. Obviously, Galloway is gone. Would Mackenzie Mbako, who his NBA draft stock has not risen this year, would he benefit from a fresh start? Because there's two parts of this about what is best for a player and what is best for a program. And so Mbako, his game could change depending on who the coach is. You want to see that development. Miles Rice has a lot of quickness, a lot of brings a lot to the floor. He's a guy, but he also needs to develop along the way. From a skill standpoint, Mbako, Renew, Rice, those are three guys I think that could help any team that they're on. But we haven't seen them take a step. Renew's basically the same player that he was when he got here. And that isn't his fault. You have to be coached up. You have to be helped along the way. Mbako the same way. Good jump shooter. You see flashes of him being better defensively, being more engaged, and that's really great. Miles Rice has a ton of skills, a ton of quickness, needs to be polished. So any of those guys, I think, would be a good addition. But also from a player standpoint, it might be in their best interest to move on and get a fresh start somewhere with a new coach, coaching change, all that kind of stuff. They have the opportunity to do it. They're going to have the ability to collect plenty of NIL money no matter where they go. So I think it's going to be a drastically different looking roster next year, both because of the classes of the players and where they are. I wouldn't expect Kane and Carlisle to be here next year. And what we just did right there is go through the entire rotation from yesterday. So we will see. Luke Goody is somebody that I could see, if he gets that extra year, I could see him sticking around because of how often he has talked about how much he enjoys wearing the candy stripes and everything that goes into that. So, Goody is going to be an asset no matter where he goes. Plus, some of these guys, look, Goody went ahead and transferred, had to get used to a new program and everything that goes along with that. To me, that is where it comes up. So I could see him sticking around. Now then, I wanted to bring in my special guest, Charlie the intern here, who has covered the game with me yesterday, was a part of the equation for us, and he wanted to give a couple of comments. I appreciate everybody kind of indulging me with this on my son as he gets it. Got to make sure your microphone is on, son. Charlie, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I really enjoyed yesterday's game.
What'd you think of the crowd?
They were it was very, very loud, especially when IU scored a basket. I just wanted to go over 3 things. 2 I planned on talking about yesterday. 1 thing you talked about earlier.
All right.
First of all, the one thing that I remember from the game, one of the things I remember from the game is me going, woo, when Umar Ballo got an alley-oop.
Yeah, they ran that play a couple of times, and it worked out really, really well for them, and that's where his size really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does. Like, how tall? 7'1"?
Yeah, he's a big dude.
And number 2 is a lot of people talked about this in the press conference with the players. One question with Mike, you know, the Trey Galloway corner shot, that very big three, and everybody went insane. He was wide open back there.
Well, I don't know about wide open. I mean, he had a guy in his face, but he knocked down the shot. It was a deep shot, too. And for a guy who's been a little bit up and down from three, it was a huge senior moment for him, for sure.
And then the third thing I wanted to go over was Luke Goody.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be he might return to IU for one more year like Leo and Trey did. That's a possibility because, like you said, he really enjoys wearing the candy stripes and being out there with IU.
Yeah, and he's got a medical red shirt that he could get. So that is all going to be part of that equation. And so it's we're in for an exciting couple of weeks is what we are, because this season's going to come to an end. Indiana fans can just root for the team, and they've done a great job of doing just that along the way, of supporting this team as the season has gone on. And there's still that excitement of who's going to come next, who's going to be that next guy.
Yeah. Leo and Trey, that was an awesome thing at senior night, and I kept thinking when they were coming out, especially Trey and Leo, man, 1 year ago they were probably giving a speech, and now they're thinking, I want to come back again, but I can't.
Yep, that's pretty much where it is. Well, Charlie, I appreciate you coming on and giving your insight, and thanks for covering the game.
Thank you, too. And especially Leo, who is from Bloomington.
Yes, Bloomington South kid.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Charlie.
Welcome.
So that special guest, Charlie Intern, joining us. I wanted to give his thoughts on what was coming on and went through the game. It's kind of interesting. You get that perspective of somebody who's new to the game, and so I actually really enjoy watching games with him. And I'll tell you what, that kid is well liked at Assembly Hall. I'll tell you that. Final call for phone calls, 812-393-2600 as we get into the noon hour. Indiana has a noon game against Oregon in the Big Ten tournament. I haven't seen the brackets just yet. So let's see here. If Indiana wins, they would then play again on Friday against the top seed. It looks like so. They got a road, but they have opportunities as well, and that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. Look, Indiana struggled through January. That has been a theme for a long time. And being able to come out and string together some wins, I will absolutely agree with the concept that you don't want to play Indiana right now because of that potential that they have. We saw that potential against Purdue. We saw it against Michigan State. They have held their own at times this season. We've also seen them go the other direction, where you're losing at Nebraska by 17 points, or losing at Iowa by 25, or losing at home to Purdue, rather to Illinois by 25. Indiana seems to have found its footing a little bit more, but part of that has to do with I don't want to say level of opponent, because they got it together against Michigan State and Purdue. But there's just been too many times this year where they haven't shown up. And against a different team yesterday, it could have been different, but they were playing Ohio State, which isn't great. So, but they got the victory, 66-60. They finished the regular season at 10-10 in the Big Ten, 19-12 overall. Getting a 20th win would be really important for this ball club. And that is where this is. You want to get to 20 wins, but I think that even without a win in the Big Ten tournament, Indiana probably is still going to get into the NCAA tournament. Now, whether that'll be a first four in Dayton or not, that remains to be seen. But Indiana does at least finish the season on a high note, and now we could look to a a situation where it's win or go home. That's where we're at right now. So that should raise the sense of urgency for absolutely everybody on that team. Well, that's all the time we have on the Peegs Postgame Live. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to remind you to visit Peegs.com for the very best in IU football and basketball coverage you're going to find anywhere. Nobody covers Hoosier recruiting better than Jeff Rabjohns, Matt Weaver, Trevor Andershock, and Jared Kelly. So come be a part of a thriving, exciting community at Peegs.com. Folks, you are not going to be disappointed. Folks, we're out of time, but for now, and for Jeff, Matt, Trevor, and Jared, I'm Ken Bykoff saying thanks for listening, everybody.